Find your path with the knowledge of others and become an illuminator for those who struggle. Guide their way just by being true and being in alignment, because it comes naturally to you. On self-discovery wisdom, we share to find inspiration with lessons for millions. We hope you listen.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Tina Marie Baxter. She started her journey as an entrepreneur, and it began with as a side hustle. She started as a broke nursing student who needed extra cash, so she taught CPR classes. She did not know anything about corporate contracts, cash flow, or marketing. It wasn't until years later that she understood that being an entrepreneur meant and how nurses could make excellent entrepreneurs. So the Baxter Professional Services was incorporated and limited back in 2015 in the state of Indiana, and its purpose is to assist attorneys, insurances, and professionals by collecting, reviewing, summarizing, and analyzing medical records and providing consultation on nursing and standards of care. She is an advanced practice registered nurse with a board-certified genealogical nurse practitioner through the American Nurse Credential Center. And she's also, for over 21 years, she's been a nurse practitioner and a nurse, and 18 years practitioner. She's the owner of the Baxter Professional Services, and she provides legal nursing consultation services for those attorney and insurance professionals, wellness and chronic disease management coaching, and customized education and operational resources to healthcare organizations. She's also the founder of the Nurse Shark Academy, where she coaches nurses to launch and scale their own businesses. And she's also the host of the Nurse Shark Academy show. She's a public speaker and has spoken on numerous topics at national level. She's a contributor to articles on the electronic and print media as entrepreneur.com, The Minority Nurse, The Authority Magazine, Medium, LinkedIn, as well as guests on numerous podcasts like today. So you're getting around, girl, and you're making sure that we get to know those nurses. And it's actually kind of quite a wonderful thing that I don't know how many years ago that it started that nurses could become practitioners. But that kind of changed the game a lot for nurses, didn't it? Because, nurses were always the doctor's helpers, and suddenly now they're actually, as they're treating the patient most of the time, can actually follow through with things that they saw needed to be done.
Well, actually, it's really funny because a lot of people have that idea that nurses were always the doctor's helper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily true. If you go back in history, nurses used to be able to prescribe and have their own treatment plans, and they would visit you in the home and take care of you and say, do this or do that. And so as medicine moved into hospitals and out of religious institutions, that model kind of changed, but we're seeing a shift back in recognizing the unique brilliance that nurses have and this renewed interest in nursology. And the science of nursing has been really exciting to be a part of.
And as it should be, because nurses are the ones that are front and center. Doctors come in, look at the file. Yes, if you watch the TV show The Pit, they're always saving someone's life, which is, yes, we do need them in critical moments. But while the doctors are busy doing things, they're commanding nurses left, right, and center who have got to be on the ball. If they get the wrong medicine or they do the wrong thing, it's life-threatening. So there's always been so much pressure on nurses, and I think it is time that they are given the credit that they're due.
I happen to agree. A lot of the medical dramas, they do a great job of showcasing what physicians can do. Although a lot of times some of those tasks that you see the doctors doing in those shows are actually the tasks that the nurses do.
Hmm.
But
Yes.
what I saw is I love The Pit, by the way. I've watched
Yeah.
most of the first season. I discovered I can't watch the whole thing just because it makes me feel like I'm at work all day.
Oh, right, true. It also has some heavy subjects too, but
The heavy
it is,
subjects I'm used to, but
yes.
it literally gave me dreams that I was back working in the ER and I was looking for this psychiatric patient and that I was supposed to do an eval on, and I couldn't find them. And it was all night, and then I woke up and had to go to work, and I was like, "This is not going to work out."
Yeah. Pace yourself on it. I find I can only do one episode at a
Yes,
time. It's not a binge thing. No.
no, no, don't binge it.
But it really does show front lines, and that I think is, I remember interviewing a doctor, during the pandemic, and she's saying that she had never signed so many death certificates in her entire career, and that so many people were going to be so burnt out by the end of COVID that they would not be able to carry on the forefront anymore, that they were going to have to seek different careers. And in a lot of ways, that is what's happened, hasn't it?
It has. There's been a lot of we call burnout. You've probably
Hmm.
heard that buzzword. It really is our healthcare system, particularly in the US, is not built to handle such things. Okay.
Hmm.
We were already short-staffed before the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
Short-staffing was not is not a new phenomenon. The problem is that when COVID happened, it kind of highlighted the cracks in the system.
Hmm.
And where you realize that you had too many patients, not enough beds, not enough nurses to treat the people that are in the beds, because it's often the nurse at the bedside that's going to first notice when things go wrong.
Right.
They're the ones that
Yes.
are sounding the alarm. Hey, Mr. Smith doesn't look very good. His vitals are kind of off. And they're calling the doctor or the provider and saying, hey, something needs to be done. And so if you take that piece out, now you have that vacuum. Who's going to catch those near misses? There are cases where the physician ordered a medication and then the pharmacist filled the medication, but it was the nurse that figured out, oh, wait, that person's allergic to that medicine, or it did
Hmm.
the information to get passed on. And so if their nurse isn't there,
Uh-huh.
how is that going to help you get better as an individual? Nursing
Mm.
is about healing. It's about wellness. It is about bringing you back to your optimum health. And so a lot of times people forget the science that goes beyond behind what we do as nurses.
The other thing is, when a person goes into emergency or has any kind of medical thing that's a little scary, the last thing we need is because it just adds
Yes.
to the stress. And you want somebody that can spend a few moments with you, just calming you. And then through that calming, can kind of see what else is going on. But everything now today is next, next, next,
Yes.
instead of let's take care of the patient, not just what is at issue right now, but let's care for the patient by giving time for the patient, because then we'll probably be able to see what the core problem is, how it came about, or other things that could be causing it, because you're able to listen to the patient and
Yes.
truly hear it. Because you go into a doctor. I know that before I had 7 years without a doctor here in Canada because we had shortages of doctors, and
Hmm.
you would have this telephone doctor, one question, 3 minutes,
Hmm.
right? And it took ages to even get that. And it's like, how can you get to the root of the problem, or even address if that is the problem? So nurses have always been that tender ear and the calming, the soothing, and but also the investigator.
Yes. Yes. To try to triage what's going on, right? We're
Yeah.
very adept in triaging patients, understanding the nuances behind some of the behaviors, the symptoms people present with. A good example, I was working in the hospital. This was when I was a nursing supervisor, and we had a patient come in, and I had been familiar with this patient. I had taken care of him before. And I got the call from the other hospital saying they're sending this patient to us. for admission. So he arrives and they bring him in on a stretcher. Okay. First of all, that was usually he walks in. So I'm like, why is he on a stretcher? That was my first clue. I evaluate him and they're like, yeah, he's actually psychotic. I'm like, no, he's not psychotic. He's delirious.
Mm.
I know psychosis within him. This is not his psychotic self. He's delirious. I said he needs to be reevaluated, send him to the ER. So I sent him to our ER. Our ER then called and said, we need a psych consult. And I said, is it for so and so? They said, yeah. I said, no, you don't need a psych consult. I've already seen him. I sent him to you. He is delirious. Well, he ended up in the ICU, completely obtunded with sepsis. Had he come to
Ah.
my unit, he
Mm.
probably would not have survived because all we got is some oxygen in a tank and,
Right.
AED because we're a psychiatric facility.
Yes.
So, but I knew him.
Uh-huh.
I knew what his baseline was. I knew what
Mm.
he looks like when he's psychotic. And I was able to take one look at him and say, no, oh boy's green. I would pick up his arm and it would just flop down on the
Right.
cot. I'm like, he is not psychotic. I said, this is delirium. I said, you need to take him to the ER. He needs a full workup. They worked him up. Sure enough, he ended up in ICU, almost coded on them.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you kind of, think of how many people do kind of code before they truly get seen because of this overwhelming, and that's one thing the pit shows you and is very true. You go to emergency, you're very lucky. You are very lucky
Hmm.
if you get out there under 4 hours.
Yes.
Very, right?
Yes.
That is a good time. Otherwise, you could be there 8, 12 or more hours. And there have been cases where people dying in emergency
Hmm.
because they're not seen. And that's, you know, I kind of put that as the pen pushers, not the medical staff, because
Yeah.
you just need more medical staff. And so I understand where nurses go, okay, I don't feel I'm doing as much good there as I could be as a nurse practitioner with my own, my own office, my own premises, and really kind of give the kind of care I want to give to my patients that I'm unable to under that umbrella. Are you finding that more?
I am finding that we call that moral injury, where a
Mm,
nurse knows what she should be doing or he should be doing, right? You have this standard of care that you must meet in these ethical guidelines that we are required to follow, and then yet our reality does not match that. So you're being told to do more with less,
yeah.
and the less keeps getting bigger, you
Yes.
know, to where now you're not giving the best care for the patient. You're just barely keeping them alive, you know, and that's not sustainable. And so a lot of nurses are taking a step back because that puts us in a very bad position. I had a case where there was one nurse for 40 patients in a nursing home. How is one nurse supposed to
No.
give good care to 40 residents? That's
Right.
insane. But we often run that way. And,
Hmm.
we look at the bottom line. And so it really does make a difference if your where you work is for profit or nonprofit. There's been studies that shown that more for profit entities have worse patient outcomes. And
Yes.
part of that is because the focus is on pleasing the shareholders and not necessarily patient satisfaction, although they want those scores to be up, but you're not giving the staff the stuff that they need. And this is why you're seeing so many nursing strikes that are happening, not just in
Yes.
the US, but in other parts
Across
of
the
the
world.
world,
Hmm.
Canada,
Hmm.
India.
Hmm.
There's one strike I think that happened in China a long time ago. So there's nurses that are speaking out, and this is not just a US problem. This is a worldwide phenomenon where nurses are now saying, "Hey, wait a minute, somebody needs to take care of us."
But the thing is it, somewhere along the line, the accountant started running
Yes.
medical and pharmaceutical.
Hmm.
Right. Now we already
Yeah.
know that pharmaceutical are pure gougers. And
Hmm.
there is, why is it in one country this cost and in America quadruple? Right. So we know
Right.
the greed is there. And we know that, the pen pushers are pushing, no, 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 get them in and out, the least cost, the least cost, the least cost, instead of really looking at this as a human form and going, now, if I make this person really, really well, and teach them how to continue to be well,
Yes.
then there's that sustainability rather. I mean, for especially for people who don't have insurance or insurances that only cover this or cover that, how many times do people go, I can't afford the medicine, can't afford to go to the doctor, can't afford to go to the hospital, right? Because it's not about life first. And this is,
No.
I think, where we're at in humanity right now is that we've let the pen pushers for so long in the world run all these organizations, all these medical organizations, and they've pretty well run it to the ground in the sense of humans are not first. Humans are not first.
No. As much as they want to preach patient-centered care, the patient is often the first person lost in the
Mhm.
equation.
Yes.
Part of and this is part of the issue in the US system where your nursing care, most people don't know this, but your nursing care is bundled in and billed in with your room charge. So everything that the nurses do, they're not billing for that individually. It's kind of bundled in like you were the housekeeper at the hotel, right?
So
And-
they're kind of running it like a hotel.
yes, and so
Yes.
it's hidden. The
Yeah.
value that the nurses bring and the expertise that the nurses bring is hidden because they're not billable services. Therefore, there's not a return on that revenue. So we'll just get rid of most of the skilled people and try to do as much as we can with unassisted, unlicensed personnel, or we'll cut back and have you, cover more patients. And we're seeing a lot of entities that are recognized organizations that are being called to the carpet for that. And there's now a big strike in California. There was one recently in New York. So we've been seeing this all over the country in the US. And part of the problem is how we are structured in healthcare. And the costs are astronomical. You can go to insurer A, and insurer A has great coverage for your area, but insurer B does not. And
Mm.
insurer B will call you, and I won't call their name out. They know who they are. They will call you in the middle of a surgery and say, "Oh, we're not going to cover this." Well,
Right.
it's too
The
late
body is
now.
open. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have the surgery. And they would do things like, "Well, you didn't call us and let us know you were going to the emergency room, so we're not going to cover your visit." Well,
Excuse me?
do you know
Emergency
emergency?
room.
You don't
Yeah.
know if you're going to have an emergency. So
Right.
and now that we introduce AI into the
Yeah.
equation, a lot of times they're using these algorithms to determine whether or not they will cover something. So I've had a person who's been on the same medication and they've been doing very well managed on the medication for years. All of a sudden, new plan year, they decide they're not going to cover it anymore. And they're saying, well, we don't have this, we don't have that. And I said, well, that's funny because you guys are paying these claims. So when you see that they had been on XYZ medication before and it didn't work, you paid those claims. But the person that's doing the prior authorization is not the same person who processed the claims, and they don't talk to each other very well.
No,
So
no,
then
no, God.
now,
Yeah.
as a provider, I've got to go take time out, get more staff and overhead and more costs to chase down something that would possibly keep them out of the hospital and ultimately save money.
Right.
So it's just um a circus sometimes. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And nurses are caught in the middle a lot of times.
Exactly, exactly. And, I think that change doesn't happen within that system. Change
Mhm.
happens when nurses and doctors go, screw it, we're going independent or we're going to start our own. We're just not going to be there. Um, and unfortunately, then it goes to privatization, which so many people can't afford. But
Yes.
it does come about when, they have a shortage of nurses, right? Like we have here in this country, and what they've been doing is enticing, especially right now, medicals to come over
Yes.
to Canada. You can practice medicine here safely, up
Yes,
for the rest.
I've gotten the call. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I said come from the U.S. and come to Canada. We'll take you.
Ex-
Yeah. Mhm.
So, and for a lot of people, they're taking it up, which is great for us. But it's like, why are we not, there's a lot of people just not going into nursing anymore because it's like, I don't know. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of stress. It's not that great a pay. I really want to have an impact on lives, but how much are my hands tied behind my back because of this system? But obviously, to become a nursing practitioner, you've got to become a nurse first.
Right.
So, how long do you have to be nursing, as a nurse, and what kind of experience do you have to have before you can become a practitioner?
Well, oftentimes in the United States, so there's been a little bit of shift in the educational requirements, but when I started, you had to have at least a year or two as a RN working before you can apply to the nurse practitioner program. And so, because you had that background of already working with patients, when they bring you into the NP program, then you're taking that to a different level where you're working directly with the patient. You're working on learning about disease process even more than you did in your undergraduate. So it's a master's or above degree. And so we've seen a kind of shift in how people are trained. It used to be on the job training. It's how they
Hmm.
used to do it way back when, right?
You're
It's like
right.
your
Yes,
nursing
yes.
program. But now we've made it more of an academic exercise. And I have to say, the program that I went to was great because we had a proxy patients come in that you had to do a complete physical exam on,
Hmm.
including the pelvic exam. Yes, we did the whole physical exam, and you had to pass that in order before you can even start your clinicals. So you had to
Ah.
do those things and know how to do the work before you got there. And so I really appreciate the hands-on training that I got in my
Mm.
program. I was an RN for, I'm going to say, 3 years before I got into the NP program. And I was working as a nursing supervisor at the hospital and ended up going to graduate school and being a double major, which, by the way, I don't recommend doing that, doing two graduate degrees at the same time.
You're
But I'm
right.
insane like that. So I actually have a master's in nursing education and got my postmaster's as a nurse practitioner because I was doing dual tracks because, obviously I can't make up my mind. And I love both. I love teaching and I love being a clinician. And that's what kind of led me to starting these businesses is because I can do both, but on
Mm.
my own terms. I don't have
Right.
to have someone dictating to me when I can have a CPR class or when I can have a CS
Right.
or when I can work on a legal case. That boss, she's a lot stricter than a lot of the other bosses I work for.
Hmm.
And she'll wake me up in the middle of the night and make me do work. But other than that, um, yeah, my boss is mean to me sometimes.
As
Sometimes.
as many of them are.
But I love being an entrepreneur because it gives me that freedom
Yeah.
to do things and do things my own way without having someone micromanage me.
So tell us about the Nurse Shark Academy.
Well, that came about as people were asking me, nurses were calling me, DMing me, saying, "Hey, how can I get an LLC? And how did you get started in business? And I want to start this home care agency, but I don't know what all to do and where to go." And in my own entrepreneurial journey, I work with some great business coaches, but I realized that a lot of them don't understand healthcare.
Mm.
So they understand basic business, which is, what we need, but there are nuances in healthcare that were lacking, like certain regulations, the things that you couldn't do, and you had to follow this rule and make sure that that person, you got accreditation in this and things like that. And so because they didn't have expertise in healthcare, and I do, it made me think there's a small niche of people that I need to serve because I want nurses, I'm always rooting for the underdog. I want nurses to know that they can have their own businesses and then help them overcome some of those regulatory hurdles. And so that's how I got started with the Nurse Shark Academy. Originally, I was just going to have a podcast. It's just kind of funny. So I was going to have a podcast, but I was in a challenge with a business coach. And part of the challenge was, during this challenge, was like a week-long challenge, is that you had to put on your own online challenge within 2 to 3 weeks. So that changed my model completely. Right then and there, I changed it to a consulting business and a coaching business. And I launched the Nurse Shark Academy in like 2 weeks and had my first online challenge. um, because that's what I was told to do. And I'm like, I'm an action taker. So I'm like,
Right,
yep, we're gonna do
clearly.
it.
Clearly, no
Yeah.
procrastination on your side.
No, and then the podcast came later because I met so many nurses and people say, I didn't know nurses could own businesses. And I said,
Mm,
absolutely. And somebody needs to highlight and spotlight these businesses.
yes.
So I said, why not me? And so
Mm,
that's how the podcast started. And it was, I've been working on it for like 2 years after I started the Nurse Shark Academy, and I made it so hard in my head. It was going to be so difficult. And then I just said, all right, we're just going to do it. And I just jumped in and had my very first episode recorded on Zoom. And it was just me telling my own story because I
hmm.
wanted to get the format down a little bit before I have guests.
Right. Yes.
And I met other great podcasters like yourself that helped me along the way. And it was because of guesting on other people's shows
Yeah.
that I got to know the podcasters in the podcast community. And I was able to say, hey, how does this work? And, what kind of equipment do you use? And what do you
Mm.
actually need to do a podcast? And then I found out that I was a podcaster before I knew I was a podcaster
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because I was doing a weekly live show on nursing news commentary. And I've been doing that for, several years. I started during the pandemic, actually, just telling people where to get their PPE and the latest COVID numbers. And so that grew. And then somebody told me, hey, I've been listening to your podcast. I was like, I have a podcast? Oh, you mean my live show that's at the time on the Book of Faces? And so yeah, I said, okay, all right. I said, maybe I can do this. And full disclosure, years ago, I was a radio DJ.
Ah, so it was in your blood naturally anyway.
Yes, I was a radio DJ in high school and college. I had two shows. But in my mind, I never thought about using those skills at all. And I didn't realize that I was doing what I've been trained to do. I mean, I had my own little FCC license and all that kind of stuff back in the day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm reusing those skills that I
Exactly.
learned in high school and college to have
Exactly.
host my own shows. And I just thought that was amazing. So that's what I mean by start with what's in your hand.
Hmm.
What skills do you already have that you can use to build and grow? And as nurses, we already have skills like assessment
Hmm.
and skills of planning and skills of putting into goals and goal setting and all these different things. We do care plans every day. I said, if you
Hmm.
can write a care plan, you can write a business plan,
Right.
And so I looked at those skills that I had broadcasting, didn't realize that was still a skill set, found out later by
Hmm.
accident. A lot of my stuff has been sort of accidentally falling into it, and just be honest with you. And so, and then learning, I had my CPR training. I was an instructor for years, started as a poor, broke nursing student,
Yeah.
needing extra cash. So I started teaching CPR on the side. Never had a clue that it could be a part of a business.
Hmm.
Had corporate clients and didn't even know that that's what I had. I just had doctors' offices calling me and saying, hey, we need to come in and train our staff again. I'm like, okay, no problem. And I was just, making cash, my hand borrowing equipment from the hospital and doing this. And I realized later on that, hey, you were an entrepreneur before you knew you were an entrepreneur and it was
Exactly.
actually a thing.
Hmm.
And that is the story I want to tell to nurses. You can jump into it and find a place that thrives with you. Now, my background is education, obviously, so I've always wanted to be a teacher. As a little kid, I wanted to be a teacher, but I'm doing it in a different way. I mean, nursing education. I still take all those skills I learned in my master's program, and I pour that into what I'm doing in my coaching, my consulting, even with what I'm doing with my patients. Education is such a big part of what nurses do and teaching.
Hmm.
And so that has allowed me to really enjoy working with others in a platform and a medium where I can bring my best skills to the marketplace.
A lot of people who are have been very skilled at one thing and they decide, or especially if they're kind of in corporate, when you think about it, hospitals, medical, and all of that is corporate,
Hmm.
and they decide to go out on their own. They then realize, oh, hang on, I don't have so and so in this department and so and so in that department to fall back on. I've got to wear this hat now, right?
Yes.
And it's like billing. I've got to bill people, which insurance company, and all the T's and the dots and the I's. What will they cover? What won't they cover? When do I have to send someone to a specialist? When do I not? And so there's something that other departments took care of. You're now having to take care of yourself. So the heart is in it, the desire to be your own boss, the desire to help people the way you want to help people, but you got to wear these other hats as well.
Yes. Well, I always say find your tribe, right? You know,
Yes.
you can be in business, but for yourself, but you don't have to do business by yourself. And so one of the first things I did, I got an accountant.
Yeah.
I got a business accountant that really understood what I needed to do to stay out of trouble with the
Yeah.
IRS,
Yeah.
right? That was the first thing. I got an attorney to help me with legal fees so that I still work with them. They help me with all of my contracts and everything else. It's a prepaid program, so I just, I stay in the program. I love the program. But they're there to help me. They help me get my trademarks and everything. So I built my tribe of people that will assist me. And I did the same thing when I had my private practice. We hired out. So when one of my coaches tells me, you either have to do something, delegate something, or
Hmm.
delete something, right?
Right. I like that.
And
Hmm.
so I've learned the art of delegating to the pros for things that I really
Yes.
don't want to do. Like one of my websites, I had built professionally. Because I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with it. I want you to do it, but I worked with them. I was hip to hip with them, like, no, I like this color better.
Mm.
No, move this here, so I was very involved in it. So when it came time to hosting the podcast, this is what happened. I had to host the podcast, right? And I was thinking, oh, I need a place to send it to my own website so I can get my own traffic, da, 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 as well as the other major platforms. I had to build a website really quick.
Hmm.
So my cousin was like, "Well, I use this particular platform for mine. I'm trying not to do product placement on your show." And so I used it, and I started building my own websites. And then I was like, "Oh, I like this." And now I tweak it, and I like to run my own websites on those. The other one, I still have someone professionally managed. I don't even want to deal with that one. But I hire someone. Your job is to keep that running and fix it when it's broken.
Yes.
But otherwise, I really don't interact with that one much at all. But the other two, I'm in it all day. People text me, email me, whatever. It pops up for me. I run promotions. I liked learning those skills. So I learned marketing and branding. I hired a branding coach. I had the same branding coach. I hired him 3 times. And I'll tell you something how good he is. I
Yeah.
hired him 3 times to help me brand my business. And so I learned to invest in myself. And I look at this as a necessary business expense to invest in making me better with sales and marketing and all the things that we have to do as an entrepreneur. Because when I first thought about sales, I was like, I hate sales. I was the one that anytime I had to raise money for a function or whatever, I would just buy all the tickets and then
Yes.
hand them out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was me. But when I recognized that part of my job was promotion, and it
Hmm.
wasn't a dirty word. It's part of my
Right.
job as an entrepreneur. And I leaned into it, and I looked at marketing as an offer of help and not necessarily a, salesy used cars salesman type thing.
Which is
And
certainly you don't want from a nurse practitioner, as you used
exactly.
car salesman coming across.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I want to help you. I generally want to come from a place of helping. And so when I started leaning more into that, it became easier. So now I don't my sales process is I don't start with giving you all the things I can do, right?
Right.
I start with understanding you. The very same thing that we do as nurses at the bedside and
Yes.
getting that backstory. I do the same thing when I'm meeting with a potential customer. I want to hear about you. What are your needs? How did we get to where you are? And what can we do going forward to make it better? And
And
if
the
there's
why too.
and the why,
The
yes,
why is so important. Why is
yes,
this so important for you to do? And do
yes,
you actually understand what you're taking on? You
yes,
want to help patients better, but if you're going on your own, do you understand all the other hats that go
all the
along
other
with
hats.
it? Right. So yeah, because
Mhm.
some people I really want to do this because I can have more attention to the patients, but it's your own business. So, it's all the other things need to be in place because there has to be credibility,
Yes.
right? There has to be verification. There
Well,
has to be trust.
somebody's got to keep the lights on, right? It comes
Yes.
down to who's gonna clean the tables when they leave, who's gonna mop your floors, empty your trash, make
Hmm.
sure the bills get paid. You take on all that responsibility as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, and so unless you hire someone to help you with that process, it's on you.
Yes.
And I learned that through trial and error, right? I learned that like I said, most things in my life has been a baptism by fire. I dig in
Yes.
and we figure it out, right? And so I was a person that was doing everything on her own, right? I was,
Hmm.
bookkeeping and taxes and all this stuff. And then I realized it's not sustainable. So I started hiring a tribe. I hired an assistant who would help me go to trade shows and help me, do exhibits and things like that. Then I hired another person to help me with correspondence and things. And so now I have a VA who I love, and she's helping me get all the stuff that I know I needed to get done. But because of my busy schedule, there's no way for me to get it done. So I let her handle it. It's like, you got this part. So here,
Hmm.
I started giving her administrative access to stuff. It's like, oh, it's great. You can do that. Oh, perfect. Yeah, there you go. Um, but the control person in me, the person that wanted to be in control, had a hard time letting go. But once I grew as an entrepreneur and understood, hey, this is all part of building the team. And again, as I call it, finding your tribe. So
Yes.
find that tribe of people that will surround you, encourage you, that can work with you, walk with you through that process. And that's why I created the No Shark Academy, so that you could find that tribe. I have a
Well, I think the tribe part is so very important because if you're going to start your own practice, obviously you want a good lawyer that knows about medicine law, right?
yes.
You don't want somebody that's corporate lawyer to something else. They know this, so they know that your what's it called? I've gotten the word. It's right there. I can't grab it, but insurance against
Hmm.
anything going wrong, right?
Malpractice. Hmm.
Right. That they know exactly, how things are done properly so that you're secure, that you're covered. You want to have that accountant that actually understands your business so
Yes.
that they can serve you in your business. You want to have, somebody, I mean, I would say a lot of immigrants can do a lot of the grunt work, but nowadays in America, that's very, very
Hmm.
questionable at the present moment, which is shocking. But there are so many people that do, just quite happy to have a job. Let me go in and clean the tables and clean the floor and do the linen and do this and do that, and that clears your mind to be able to go and do the paperwork that you've got to do. And of course, there's so many automations nowadays that you can just
Yes.
dictate and it comes up and you just verify that it said it right. And then you can get on to the next patient. So you do want to have your tribe. Who are the people that can be on the outside,
Hmm.
right? And a bunch of nurses saying, look, we all want to be a practitioner. Let's start to practice ourselves, right? This way, we share the responsibility of the cost of a lawyer, the cost of accountant, or the cost of
Yes.
whatever else we need. We share the cost of the building we're actually in, right?
Hmm.
And then it's not a burden on one person, and you each have your own patients, right?
Right.
But you're sharing that responsibility, that camaraderie, and the expense. So one doesn't have to always go out on your own.
No, and I would say if you're looking at bringing on partners in your business, the first thing you want to do, make sure that you have an ironclad, good partnership agreement.
Mm.
That's
Yes.
where your attorney comes in, making sure that everything is equitable, understanding what happens if a partner dies or wants to
Yes.
leave the practice. I worked for a group years ago, and they split from another practice, and the doctor that left that practice took half the business with him.
Wow. Yeah.
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 Because their partnership agreement didn't have non-compete
Security
in
in that.
there,
Yeah.
security, and
Yeah. And this
what
is where you
happened.
need a
Yeah.
lawyer that understands
Hmm.
that business. You don't want a lawyer that deals in different industry. You want
Yes.
somebody who understands this industry, how to word it, how to protect, right? So that there isn't any of that. Disagreements may come up. People may want to split, but you've got to do it ethically. You've got to do it in a way it
Yes,
doesn't hurt the patients and it doesn't hurt the practice, right?
exactly.
Now, there's also nurses that have been in the business for a long time. I've interviewed a couple of them. One in particular was a dementia nurse. And she
Hmm.
said, like, after 20 years of dealing with dementia, the one thing that was always lacking was educating the family and on the people with the early dementia of how they can empower their future choices now before
Yes.
dementia took hold. And so she became a consultant to families of what to expect while the person's still lucid. You know, when it comes time for them to have to go into a home, to choose a home, to do
Hmm.
their will, to get their things in order before it becomes something, too much, because the burden on a family, and, we're going through this right now with my son-in-law's mother, it's going to be on them, right?
Right.
And it's they've got three kids, three babies. So it's you want to have everybody understand what's needed there. And I think there's so many things like other people or with cancer or people with other diseases. How do you manage it? Because a lot of stuff is manageable, not life and death. It's manageable. You're going to have it for the rest of your life, but how do you manage it? And it's
Right.
not just talking to the patient. Very often it's talking to the families as well to help them understand what their loved one is going through. So not everybody wants to kind of be the hands-on working with the patient that way, but they want to be that consultant to help them when they hit that kind of crossroads of what they're up against.
I worked in hospice care for a long time, and that was one of the things that I really want to make part of my practice was not just being there for the patient, although that is key and critical at that time, but also being there for the family so they
Yes.
can understand what's going, what the likely sequela was going to be, how it's going to play out. I had an instance where he was in assisted living. We had this patient and he started to kind of decline and the son panicked. He's
Hmm.
like, no, I want him to go to the hospital. So they took him to the hospital. They put him on IV antibiotics for a while. He was in the hospital for about a week and came back. And the son was like, did I do the right thing? Did I just prolong his suffering? I said, well, look at what happened because when the dad got back, the infection had been treated and everything. He had a good day.
Hmm.
And by good day, I mean he was lucid. He also had dementia. Dad also had dementia. He was able to talk to him about things when he was in the Air Force and
Hmm.
flying airplanes and reminisce with his son and have a wonderful conversation and tell his son he loved him and all this stuff. And then a week later, he declined again and he passed away.
Right.
And I told the son, I said, listen, you don't know what would have happened. We can't say what would have happened. I said, but look at it this way. You gave your dad a chance
To
to
have
have
that
one
day.
good day,
Hmm.
to visit with you, to tell you that he loves you, and for you to come to peace with what's happening. I said, so don't beat yourself up because his dad never wanted to be, hooked up on tubes and all that kind of stuff. Dad had his stuff together. Military man had his
You're
stuff
right.
together. Had it for when he enlisted in the military, so it was all. Oh, he was always had everything together. And so I said, so look at it this way. You got one good day with your dad. How precious is that?
Yes.
I said, so don't beat yourself up. Your dad
Hmm.
is fine.
Hmm.
I
You
said,
gave him that extra day, which is a memory that he will cherish for the rest of his life.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of nurses that go, like I would still love to work in hospital, but I'm, burnt out or whatever. But there are kind of smaller clinics and smaller places, but
Hmm.
people can go to if they really want to start their own. But I think that, the work that you're doing is helping them have the empowerment of choice. Right.
Yes.
I'm not just stuck in the hospital or stuck in a somebody else's surgery as an assistant nurse or whatever. I can get out there and treat people how I really, what I signed up for. And I can be, that practitioner, whether maybe they just want to be the traveling nurse and go actually around to people's homes.
Hmm.
That novelty, like in England, used to be a great deal, and nurses would check in, and it was the well being physically, emotionally. spiritually on a patient, and it would make all the difference to the patient's recovery because the nurse was coming by to check on them. They felt cared for. So,
Exactly.
whatever kind of nurse you want to be, there's so much opportunity here, but they do need to know all the needs, the do's, the don'ts, the hats, and to make sure that they've secured themselves, they protected themselves before they enter this. But really, the encouragement to go and take a different path, where you can have maybe more good, to
Hmm.
have time to do more good, you know, is there.
Well, there's still a lot of private duty nurses out there. And this, I think what nurses need to know, you can be your own private duty nurse and get your own business and do that and be there for your individual bevy of clients. And that's still very much part of nursing. It's
Hmm.
private duty nursing. And I talked to one nurse that she has her own NPI number, which is a national billing number that we use. And she's listed with the state, and the state will call her and say, we have a patient for you that needs a private duty nurse. And she'll go out and she accepts them as a client and she gets paid through the client. And the state refers her. She's on a list of private duty nurses that are available. There's concierge nurse businesses where the patient pays a monthly membership fee and they can come in and get so many visits and,
Mm.
it doesn't go through insurance at all. So there's so many different ways to do it. And my philosophy is you don't have to leave your profession. You can leave your job, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Just
You
do it
can
in a different
enhance
way.
your profession without the
Yes,
restraints, right?
yes,
Yeah, yes.
yes.
But I do recommend, like so many people I've interviewed through the years, that, how where we're corporate, they got burnt out or spat out or whatever, you've had many nudge, nudge, winks, winks, which you paid attention to. Many people
Mhm.
get the cosmic 2x4 before they realize they need to change. But what they've, said, that they learned in corporate was never wasted, because
Yeah,
now if they just pour it into all the things that we're missing in corporate, and be able to do something that's more impactful and more powerful. So I think that all nurses should go through either the hospital or some sort of on the ground training to really see and test themselves too, to that limit, because and then you'll know, okay, I thought I wanted to go and do this, but really this is an area that I see is needed and this is where I want to go. But they need to get that experience under their belt first, don't they?
they do. And so there's a case. I was listening to a podcast, and it's Nick Loper, by the way. Shout out to Nick Loper. And so I was listening to his podcast, and he had a nurse on there. She was an LPN. She was a school nurse, and she discovered that the schools had a problem with lights, headlights.
Hmm.
So she
I remember
researched
that.
it. Yeah, researched it, discovered, hey, there's a franchise I can buy into with a lights removing business that would be very profitable. She's very successful in doing this, right? She was very successful in doing this. And I had listened to this episode and I thought, oh, I wonder how this would be, here I am. So I researched it, right? I'm looking at this. I'm like, this is a good business, X amount of dollars. Yeah, we can definitely grow this, make a lot of money and all this stuff. I brought it to my business partners. I said, hey, you want to go in the headlights removal business? And this is what I see as a return on investment and all this stuff. And then I got down to, do you really want to remove headlights as a business? And I thought, no. I don't. I was excited about building the business. That's what I realized.
Yes.
Not
But you
actually
could build the business for
doing the
someone
business.
else to take over,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. There's somebody out there that will do it.
I don't want, I said, let headlights give you the heebie-jeebies. I used to hate it when I had to go do the headlights cleaning,
Uh-huh.
working in psychiatry. I had to do a lot of that.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't want to do that. I would be miserable if I did this every day. And I realized I don't really want to build a headlights removal business, or have one. I just want to build it because I think it'd
Yes.
be fun to build it. And that's when the light bulb went off. I said, oh, I don't necessarily want to run these businesses I want to help other people start the
Yes.
business that they want.
You're right.
And so I tell this to my clients, hey, just because it looks good on paper and it sounds like it's the most profitable, best business in the world, if it's not something that you love to do, don't do it.
Because you'll only resent it. or
Yes.
you'll make excuses not to do it, or you'll do it poorly. So,
Hmm.
there is always somebody that has a passion for something.
Yes.
There are people that are all gung ho over sewage. It's where I would
Yep.
want to go, but they like, oh, I want to change the sewage system, or I want to do this. And so everybody has a forte, right? Let the people that have that forte have that business, but you can help set it
Exactly.
up for them,
I can
right?
help them set it up. And I said,
That's right.
you are more than welcome to run this business, but I do not want to do this. I was like, I was miserable when I had to do it, gowned up and
Right.
everything. And I was
But
like,
but you can
mm-mm.
see how it would be a very profitable business,
Oh,
especially in
yeah.
schools and things like that, right? So
Yeah.
definitely. And that's the thing, there's always a calling.
Hmm.
If people say, but I don't know which area I want to go in. Okay, when you're talking to your patients, when you're working with your current patients, what's the one thing that stands out at you? What's the one thing
Yes.
that you wish that you really could do for them that you maybe can't do or can't do enough of, or that you see the need for and you know you can provide? Listen to yourself, your inner self, that inner voice, and let it be the guidance, right? It's not, this is not a get rich thing. This is about
No.
having a business that sustains you so that you could be there as sustainability for your patients.
I asked him, I said, what makes your heart sing?
Yeah,
What makes
yeah.
your heart sing? And so I had a client, she was adamant that she wanted a home care agency. She'd been a home care nurse forever. And she kept saying, yeah, and these agencies need staff, and these nursing homes need staff, and I try to train, the ones I'm telling go in and work for these agencies to be PRN and staff and other stuff. And so the more she talked, I said, you really don't want a home care agency, because she had tried to do it before and got
Mm,
discouraged and stopped.
right.
I said, you want a staffing agency?
Mm.
And she goes, oh my gosh, you're right. That's why my home care agency failed the first time. I said, yeah,
Uh-huh.
you were in the wrong business.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
You're excited
Exactly.
about staffing. You really don't want to go and do the stuff. You don't want to do the day-to-day care in the homes. You want to staff the people to go and do that.
Right.
And she's like, I never saw that before. I said, yeah, you want a staffing agency, not a home care agency. And that's probably why it doesn't work out, because you were in the wrong business.
But that's where your forte is. You
Hmm.
know how to set up the businesses, but you also know from, as you said, your assessment of them,
Yes.
right? Of like, yeah, I hear the passion, but it's not that direction, it's this direction. And
Hmm.
that's what you're seeing with them. And sometimes that's what people need to see. They get so caught up in the passion of something that they don't realize, yeah, fantastic, but have you turned your eyes that way?
Hmm.
Right. And you're able to do that with them and put them on the right track so they have the right business for their skills and what they're meant to be doing, which is what we need. We want to encourage, look, we do need nursing staff and hospitals and all of that, but we also know what they go through there. And I know
Yes.
that so many nurses can only do so many years before the burnout. And so what's next for them? And, they don't want to go necessarily working, with a doctor in a
In the
doctor's
clinic.
office. There's like, no, I feel like it could be more beneficial here, there, everywhere. And maybe some people don't want to start their own business, but they have friends that are starting their business and they're quite happy to go work for them,
Yes.
right? They don't want to wear the business hat. But hey, if you're looking for an employee for your small business because it's less stress on me than where I've been, I'm happy to be there as well. So there's so much opportunity.
Well, I teach nurses that your license is your business.
Yeah.
Your nursing license is your business, whether you're at the bedside in the hospital, working in the clinic, or an entrepreneur. Your license is your business, and it's up to you to take care of your business.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you, even working for somebody else and working PRN and being a 1099 employee, which is, independent contractor, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's still your business. Making sure that you have all your continuing education credits
Mm-hmm.
and everything that you're supposed to do to keep your license. That's your business.
Yeah.
And so don't forget that you're really in a business. Your business just happens to be you,
Yes.
and you're the product.
Yeah.
So remember that and think of it that way, and protect your business is all I say.
Yes.
Get your malpractice insurance and make sure you keep up to
Yes.
date with it. Make sure you stay up to date with the latest techniques of things. Just because you went
Mhm.
to school 20 years ago doesn't mean you can't learn new things,
Exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
be willing to learn new things. And I learn new things all the time. I look for new opportunities. And so if something happens, I say, there's a gap in healthcare. How can I fill that gap? How can I look at this as an opportunity instead of focusing on what we don't have?
Yeah.
Focus on where we can make a difference and where there could be an opportunity. So there's a nurse that I interviewed, and she discovered that we weren't doing the nursing practice that we had years ago. I was taught this of kind of scrubbing the hub, meaning when you have a urinary drainage bag at the tip, at the end of the Foley, the that goes into that you use to dump out the urine. We used to take an alcohol swab, wipe that down so that we could keep them from getting infections, right?
Hmm.
Get rid of the bacteria. Well, they kind of stopped that practice. They stopped teaching that in nursing school for whatever reason. Okay.
Why?
I don't know. So she developed a device that when you put the cap on, just like you do with some of the IV catheters,
Mm.
it has the alcohol pad in there and you screw it on and it already does it for you. So you forget to scrub it, it's doing it for you. So it's just a cap that goes on there. And now
Yeah.
she's in the process of taking it to different investors. She's been to Dubai to present there. I mean, she's just doing phenomenal. This is a
And
nurse,
can you
by the way,
imagine
from
this in
Indiana.
hospitals?
Yeah.
Everywhere that you need this, how it just saves. I'm sure the cat thing it would be quite economical, right?
Hmm.
But look at what you're doing is it's saving infection. Infections can
Exactly.
grow. Antibiotics you don't need to have then. The external care or lawsuits,
Exactly.
right? So
Hmm.
a simple little cat probably is, cents on the dollar, right?
Yes.
So it's stupid if people don't get behind her. I think it's brilliant,
But it was a nurse that came up with that.
right?
There's another nurse that saw how all the cords were getting tangled up when people were in ICU and everything.
Uh-huh.
So she developed a prototype for the little comb so that you can put all your cords together nice and neatly and so they could be labeled and you would know what cord was what, and
Yeah,
a
because
nurse
you
came
don't
up
want to
with
be
that.
pulling the wrong cord.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It was a nurse that came up with the first crash cart. The reason why we have
right.
crash carts now, a nurse came up with that.
Well, because they see what's needed because they're firsthand.
Yes.
They're right there,
Hmm.
right? Through the nitty-gritty. And so they know what's needed. And, that's the thing. Innovation comes out of need, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Always. And so when we've got people that go, look, I see the problem. All we need is X, Y, and Z. Other people don't always see it. And then when it's there, it's like, oh, why didn't I think about that? Because
Hmm.
it's so rational. But it's people that are on the front lines that, know what's missing and what will make their lives better and being able to serve a patient. So, yeah, so there's so many ways a nurse can serve in a
Yes.
business. So it's, for this, show is for anybody that is wanting to get into nursing and with the view to having their own business down the road, or people that have been in nursing for a while and go, I'm getting burnt out. You know, could I be my own boss? What area would I like to go in? This is intriguing. I'd like to kind of have a chat with Tina to find out if she can see where I should go and what I need to start it up. So having said that, how do people know more about the Nurses Shark Academy? How do they reach you? Now, I know you've got something that you're offering. Um,
Mhm.
it's a promo code to get a free ebook. What is the ebook about, love?
It is the primer to be a nurse CEO. So it's a basic workbook that kind of helps you to clarify your niche. And so you could really hone down to what niche audience you want to speak to and find your business avatar. So I'm giving that to you complimentary with the promo code of action. You go to the nursesharkacademy.biz.
Right. So nursesharkacademy.biz, B-I-Z.
Mhm.
You're also on YouTube. This is where your podcast is, the YouTube.
Yes, it's on YouTube and it's also on my website as well. And anywhere you get your podcasts, you can get the audio version and YouTube has the video.
Okay, so that's the Nurse Shark Academy on YouTube. You're on Facebook, Nurse Shark Academy, Instagram under your name, Baxter Prof Serve, LinkedIn, the Nurse Shark Academy, so people can reach out to you in any which way. But what a great gift to start off by reading the book and just letting it nudge you. Getting those thoughts in place, allowing yourself to think of possibilities. What if I did do this? Maybe it's not straight away. Maybe it's a year or two down the road, or maybe I'm just goddamn ready for it now, but I have no idea where to go, or what do I need, or where would I be needed most? And so start off with the book, which is a great way to kind of just get your mind in the right mindset, and then reach out to you. So do they reach out to you through the site? Do you have a
Yes,
contact?
you can reach out to me through the website, and if you want to book a 15-minute call, you can book a 15-minute call there as well. And then also you can send me an email and message me. It's right there on the website. Everything is right there and easable to access, to send to me and chat with me as well.
So if they go to the website to find the ebook, they'll find the book and then just put in action to get that.
Yep, put in action and they'll get the book. Yep.
Okay, so start off with the book, folks. So look at and listen to her podcast and what she's talking about. We need nurses. We need them, right? And, I'm very much about holistic, but I also are on the medical side of things as well. Nurses are the caregivers. I've done numerous shows on burnout of nurses, and especially around dementia or nurses that people that are even looking after patients that that just who looks after them, right? Yes. And so if you feel that this is where you're at is just become too much and you would like to start your own, or you just like to start your own because you've got ideas that you can't utilize where you are, then there is a path for you. You can have your own business. We want you out there serving patients the way they need to be served, right? So your forte, your passion, your commitment, start your own business, right? Bring it forth. So this is Shark Academy. There you are. Reach out to Tina and have that 15-minute chat. I do recommend look at the book first, though, because already then your mind is working and you kind of know what to ask her, or listen to some of the podcasts and you'll know what to ask her. And, when you've got that 15 minutes, be clear. This is the line that I'm in right now. These are the areas that I'm kind of contemplating, because now she can really hone in with some answers for you rather than kind of waffling for 15 minutes and because you don't know, right? So kind of don't waste that time, get for thoughts collaborated there. But it's a great job that you're doing. We so desperately need it. And nurses desperately need it. They need to be supported. And it's about time that we do. So I'm glad that you've got the entrepreneurial hat and you see opportunity and you know how to go out and get it and create it, because you have laid down the template, the blueprint, for them to start a business, to pursue something that's their dream that they wouldn't have known how to even start, right? Because regular business coaches wouldn't know how to go about this. They need somebody that's in the business to actually understand, as a nurse practitioner, what they need to have all their ducks in a row, because ordinary coaches can't do that because they don't know the legalities and everything else that's needed. So she's been there, she's done it, and she's here to help you. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Tina. It's wonderful work you're doing, and keep on sharing and keep on growing, girl, and keep on seeing, because you're clearly one of those illuminators in life.
Well, I thank you. This has been such a wonderful time, and I really appreciate you having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And remember, anybody out there, there's always a redirect. You do not have to stay where you are and feel, is this it? If you're feeling like that, there is always a pivot. You've just got to be able to swing your head to the left and the right and see where it is. Right now, it's with Tina Baxter. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you to listen to right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Come and hear the illumination that's going to shed light on your path.
Find your path.